So the topic tonight is, would you do it again? Would you do it again? And I don't necessarily only mean if you're in a relationship or whatever, if you would marry that person again, if you would get into a relationship with them again. I'm talking about something a little bit more ethereal. What if you had the option? Now, of course, you have to assume here, before I get into my analogy, you have to assume that, for argument's sake, we reincarnate. Maybe we're in a video game. We reincarnate and we have the choice of when, how, who, with who to reincarnate, etc. So, would you do it again? Is there anybody in your life that when you go back to be reincarnated, that you would say, I am not playing with them again. I am not coming back here with this person, with this energy, to do this again. If you had that option, is there anybody you would just completely cut out? You're all shaking your head. Yeah. Right? We've all at least got that one energy. But be sure now, because, forever is forever. Thinking of things in that way is a good exercise to really figure out some of our own triggers and some of the ways that maybe we view people maybe a little bit harshly, more harsh than we should. Right? We all have our narratives, but then when you think about it, how much of what we think of people is just pure emotion, or how much of it is based on fact. But we all interpret facts completely different, right? I mean, that's what makes relationships so tough in the first place. Is, especially for men and women, a man's interpretation of something is almost always going to be very different from a woman's interpretation. Fidelity, emotional affairs. Like, everybody pretty much agrees that having sex with somebody else is cheating. Well, what level does that go to in terms of emotional affairs or friendships? You do a quick search of YouTube or any platform, and you'll find most men kind of don't want their women having male friends, and most women think, what? There's nothing wrong with it. Well, of course you don't. It serves you well to have other male friends when the relationship ends. Your boyfriend or your husband has no use for your male friends. It doesn't serve him. But the point is that when you think about who would you cut out of your life permanently, like all of your lives permanently, you just say, that's it. I am completely done with this person, this soul, this energy. To make that big of a decision, how sure are you? You had better be sure that your interpretation of the situation is as accurate as it can be for you. You're not going to get someone else to agree, right? The someone else. If there's somebody that you would cut out of your life, they are not going to agree with your assessment of the situation by default, obviously. And then the other way around it is, if you're thinking about how you're judging other people and if it's too harsh or not, you have to flip that around. And if you're going to judge people by a certain standard, then you kind of need to judge yourself by that certain standard. And isn't that where we all play the hopscotch of relationships? Like, when you get into a new relationship, you have both had previous relationships and both learned certain lessons. Right? Now, as time goes on, situations are going to present for you to both learn your lessons or not. You'll learn not to learn the lessons. For those of whoever, us, you, those of us who have learned lessons in previous relationships may recognize what's happening in the new relationship and attempt to point things out, and that can go poorly. Inevitably, each person is going to meet at a different place. And then when you play hopscotch and go to the next relationship, now you've taken that knowledge and or that baggage along with you. And you replay the same roles over and over again until you've figured out your part in things. We all have a part in all of it. You know? Nobody's forcing us to do anything. Nobody is... If you do something in a relationship that you would have never done before, or that you really regret, or that you say you felt pressured into doing, well, you still had free will. You still had the choice. You played a part in it. You made the decision to say, okay, I'll do this thing. Yes, you may have felt you were doing it for love. Yes, you may have felt like it was the right thing to do at the moment. But if it goes bad, a lot of people will try to dissolve themselves of any responsibility. Say, well, you pushed me to do that. You wanted me to do that. That's what you suggested. It's like, well, yeah. But we all have free will. We all made a choice. So we all play a role one way or another. And what I have found invariably is that none of the lessons come without a willingness to accept one's role. And you also have to be willing to dig a little bit deeper than surface. To say, well, yeah, I take responsibility. I made that decision. Okay, but why? Your lesson is not in admitting that you made a decision. Your lesson is in figuring out why you made that decision. Because most likely, as you look back on the past relationships, you will find a repeating pattern. You made decisions that you didn't want to make, and just getting years down the road, one relationship at a time, and acknowledging that you made the decisions, that's not really going to help. You need to understand why you made the decisions, and you need to understand how each decision stacked upon the next and might have caused you to view people in a manner in which that maybe was a little bit removed from reality. And now you're sitting there thinking, I wonder if I would cut them out permanently out of my life. Not just this life, but all the lives. I never want to come back with that person. I am done dealing with that energy. How many of you, when you've met somebody for the first time, you thought, oh, you again? And then you went on to have a relationship, viable or not, peaceful or not, there was a relationship. Now that comes from something, right? I feel like I've known you my whole life. I mean, we obviously all meet people along the way that we resonate with, that for lack of a better understanding or a better explanation, we would feel that it's obvious that there's, we've been doing this before, we've had past lives together, whatever word you want to use for it. We all meet those people where we already just like feel like we already know that energy. The energy is just so familiar. Would you maybe get sick enough of one of those people that say, that's it. When we get home, I'm telling Dad I'm not coming back here with you anymore. What if it's possible? What if it's viably possible? When we die, we go back and we get debriefed, like they do in the military. We get our debriefing. And then the debriefing, we say, hey, look, this one, I'm not going back in with that person. You sent me to war with them 3 times now. They suck. I don't want to do this anymore. Okay. Okay. Now, of course, this is an imaginary situation, but would you want somebody cutting you out? Would you want somebody taking exactly the way that you know they feel about you and applying it to something as serious as cutting you out of every life they'll ever have, every moment they'll ever have? How many of you feel that any of your previous relationships really knew you and understood you? Now, it can happen. I certainly feel like my ex-wife of 24 years has a handle at least on how I will react 70% of the time. Now, some of that is because I react the same way to her energy without fail. So that's partially it. But, you know, obviously we're divorced, so we had our issues like everyone else. But I don't necessarily know that would be somebody that I would just lop off. It's not reserved for the less chaotic, normal exes, so to speak, if that makes any sense. You know, if it's an ex that you can still be in the same room with, all right. I guess we'll come back next time and we'll do it differently next time. Right? Next time I'll be the dad, you'll be the kid. You know, something like that. But then there's the other energies that just, you were pissed at each other when you met, but there was a instant attraction. Well, you've all been at the end of a relationship. When it's over, you can get stuck in the energy of wondering what happened, why did this, why did that, etc. Now, if you never have closure on that, what if you come back the next time around, the next life, and you just pick up from that moment? You meet a person later in life and you meet them, you're like, oh, geez, you again? It's like, yeah, me again. Come on. We got to do our prerequisite 10 years together in this life. What if you just pick up where you left off, where you're just kind of like pissed off and bitter with each other? But there's this attraction because, you know, you kind of got addicted to the idea of, I can fix this person. I can make this work. What if you carry that forward like a video game? Right? You used to play Dungeons and Dragons. You created a character. You know, you could bring certain pieces and parts of the character forward with you. Now, I don't know if it's possible or not. I don't know if it's possible or not. I do know that I got so frustrated with somebody last week that I actually did that. I actually came out here, walked around, and told God, I am not coming back with that person again. I am not coming back. If they ain't figured it out in this lifetime, I'm done, because I feel like I've done it 20 times with them already. I literally did that. I don't know. I don't know how I would prove if it works. I guess in the next lifetime I'll start another YouTube channel. I don't know. Like, well, remember last lifetime when I cut so-and-so out? It's like, well, it worked, I think. How would you know until the end of your life? You know? What if that's the joke? What if they make you think you can cut somebody out of all your lives, and all it does is it means, like, you meet them last. Like, you go live your whole life, and then at, like, 75, like, both of your spouses have died, and then you meet, and you're like, you again? Ah, damn it, you again. And you have to spend, like, however many years you have left on earth, old and decrepit, with this person that you tried to cut out of all of your lives, and they can energetically feel it too. It's like, I know you hate me. Oh, man. What if it's true, though? What if it's true? Not if you hate them, but just what if we have that level of control over everything, man? We don't know. My grandfather used to say, I don't know what happens when we die, but it must be pretty good because people keep coming back. And it never made any sense because, well, no, I just butchered his quote. He said, I don't know what happens when we die, but it must be pretty good because nobody's been coming back. He would say, nobody's been coming back. And how do we know nobody's been coming back? And then furthermore, if we are being reincarnated and coming back here, what I want to know is where the hell are we going that when we get there, we say, oh, screw this, send me back down to earth. Now, I'm concerned about that. That is a big concern for me. That will keep me up at night. If we are coming back here and being reincarnated, what does that say about wherever it is that we're going? Right? Now, I guess Christians believe you go to heaven and you're not being reincarnated. I don't know. Maybe you get that as an option, right? But, I mean, the way heaven's been described, it sounds nice and all, but don't you think it sounds a little bit boring after a while? It's like you're just there and you don't have to do anything and you're just like there and the streets are paved with gold or whatever. It's like, if I'm in heaven, why do I care if the streets are paved with gold? I'm just making that part up. Don't anybody take it personal now. But the point is that maybe there is a heaven and we spend about 6 months there and be like, I'm bored. What am I supposed to do? Well, you could go play life again. All right, send me back down to earth. And here we are again. And then the irony of it would be that we get here and if you're Christian, the goal is to get back to heaven. Well, what if when we get there, we get bored? It's like, I'm bored. I'm just laying around all the time. My dad won't leave me alone. I mean, I guess if the dogs are there, that would be pretty cool. Right? But what if we get there? It's like, it's boring. Send me back down to earth. Then we get to earth and we're like, this place sucks. I can't wait to get to heaven. That would be it. That would suck. That would suck. It could very well be true like that. Well, what's the point, man? The point is that I don't wish upon anybody the feeling of getting to the point where there's another energy that you are willing to cut out of all of your lives. Even if you don't know that you have the option, just putting that out there, just putting the energy out there, saying, that's it. I will not do anything with this energy ever again. I do not wish upon anyone the circumstances that lead you to that. We all have our different thresholds for repeating situations. We all have our thresholds for others that refuse to take any accountability. And I suppose the only way to have a successful relationship is to find somebody whose thresholds match yours. When you meet somebody, there's some questions you need to ask. Do the investigating. And don't try to BS yourself and say, oh, okay, well, I'll deal with that. I'll be okay with that. Or I'll stop doing this. I won't do this anymore. If the two of you vehemently disagree on certain things before the relationship begins, cut your losses. Cut your losses. If either one of you is saying, how could you ever think that would be okay? And the other one is just like, well, I'll just stop doing it. Don't. Cut your losses. Cut your losses. When you enter a relationship under the idea that there's things that you would naturally do that you're just going to have to stop doing to enter the relationship. I mean, obviously, I'm not talking about like drinking and drugs and stuff. I'm just talking about normal personality behaviors. You just might not be compatible with that person. And if you enter in a relationship with somebody that you're not compatible with on some of those basic levels, life is going to present you with a lot of opportunities to make a different decision. And if you're going to make the decision to continue to not do the work and not do the thing that you said you wouldn't do, if you're going to continue to make that decision, each time it comes back around, it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And you got to have some accountability for continuing to make the same decision. If every morning somebody asks you for $5 and you give it to them, don't blame them when you're broke. You didn't have to give them the $5. You said, no, sorry, I can't give you $5. Right? But you did it the first time, and so maybe I got to do it the second time, the third time. And you don't stop until you're broke. And then you blame them. It's like, well, if I would have known it was going to make you broke, I wouldn't ask for $5. Accountability isn't people's strong points these days, though. The ease of opportunity to get attention from the opposite sex is it has diminished people's willingness to have accountability, self-discipline, the willingness to learn, grow, go through hard times. Because, 100 years ago, you were married. It's like, you better make that work, because you ain't going to go on the internet, on a dating site, and find somebody new anytime soon. Because if the town you live in ain't all that big, the selection is limited, everybody knows you just got out of a relationship, so nobody's just like running and pounding on your door, most likely. Lack of opportunity would make somebody be a little bit more honest about the situation, be a little bit more forgiving of circumstances. And I'm not just talking about romantic attention. You know, now for men, a lot of our, the attention we're looking for is physical. Not that we don't want romance and all of those things we do, but that's a little bit more accessible for a man than sex. If a man wants sex, he has to behave in a particular manner or have a lot of money. But for women, it's a little bit different because for some women, sex is the currency, but for a lot of women, it's just attention. If they can easily get the endorphin hit of the attention from online, if they feel like they're not getting it at home, they can easily get the accolades from work or from someone else if they feel like they're not getting it at home. So it's made the situation of both ends. People don't want to do the work. They don't want to work as hard to keep relationships because it's a self-fulfilling prophecy a little bit, because you figure, I can find somebody else. And you do. It's not hard to find people. But you're still damaged from the last relationship, and so you kind of sprinkle the same energy on that one too. The cycle repeats itself until all that's left are broken people meeting broken people. And nobody wanting to take accountability. Which could lead you to finally just getting sick of somebody to the point where you go outside and yell at God and say, I'm done. I don't want to anymore. And I'm not just talking about this lifetime. I'm not coming back here with this person. Just on the off chance that that's how it works. If I have a choice, let them go learn their lessons with somebody else. Cut the karmic cord. Because if you agree to be in a relationship with someone who's got karma, it's going to affect you too. Karma is contagious. You can't be in a relationship with somebody, romantic relationship, live with somebody, and if they got some bad juju coming their way, it's going to go right through you too, for the most part. Something bad happens to them, it's happening to you too. Maybe not the same effect, but maybe sometimes it's worse from the perspective of they may expect you to somehow say the right thing or do the right thing to make it all better. You just better hope that you don't recognize that the thing that's happening to them is because of the karma that they got coming to them. You might get sick of that. You might just be willing to cut your losses and be like, look, we've done this 20 times, I'm done. Just make sure you're judging them by the same standard that you would judge yourself. Sometimes you learn a lesson in one relationship and you apply it perfectly to the next, and it doesn't matter. It's very interesting how honesty is viewed differently by people, and how being honest is not a guarantee of success, but being dishonest is usually a guarantee of being unsuccessful. I've experienced two main relationships. One I was not exactly honest in, and the other I was far too honest in. And neither time I received honesty in return. So, was the dishonesty I received in the second relationship karma for the dishonesty I put out in the first? Could have been. The first one was being dishonest with me too, so does it rub out? I don't know. I guess I'll find out with the next relationship, right? But the point being is that I learned a lesson after the first one that you need a certain level of honesty, and I did that, and it didn't matter. It didn't matter. Now, that doesn't mean the third relationship, with hopefully the third time's the charm, but it doesn't mean that I'm going to go back to being dishonest. I keep riding the honesty train in hopes of that's what I will receive in return. Not in hopes and expectation. So it could have been my own karmic debt, some of that being paid that way. But it could go both ways. Right? There's still free will. It's still free will. Maybe the karmic debt was me being put in the position to be at the mercy of somebody being honest or not. And then they had to learn their lesson of whether they were going to be honest or not. Those are the kind of relationships that you do that enough with people, you get sick of them and say, I'm not doing this anymore. Don't come knocking on my door next lifetime. Again, if we have control over that, I would think that we would. It's too obvious that all throughout our life, we interact with people that we know we've interacted with them before. And so if we keep coming back with the same group of people, one would assume that that's on purpose. But I'll never know, right? I mean, I'll never know. Maybe when I die, I gotta be like, you sure you want to cut them out? You sure you want to do that? You know, maybe they'll try to get me to reconsider wherever we go. Maybe wherever we go, none of the stuff matters, what we were honest or dishonest about or any of that. Maybe none of it matters. But then, if it doesn't matter where we go, whether we were honest or dishonest in this lifetime, then what does it matter here? Right? Like, where's the consequences? Or is it just a game? Life is but a dream. Now, I have subscribed long to the theory that I made up long ago, that I'm not the only one that has, but that life is a video game. Everything that you could want to know about life, every question you have about how does life work, can be explained away with video game theory. I've yet to find a hole in it. So what if we are just sitting somewhere in a box or in a bubble with our AI headphones on, and this is just our lunch, a video game we play on our lunch break, right? What if I'm just screaming at God about, I'm not coming back here with so-and-so, and when the game is over, we get out of the game box or the bubble or wherever we are, and I just tossed my mother overboard and disconnected her from the rest of my lives, We don't know. When I say my mother, the point I'm making is that the relationships that we have with the people in our life now is likely to be different than the relationships we have with them wherever the hell we are, jacked into some matrix machine. Or we go to heaven and get bored and decide to come back here to play again. Right? Maybe that's our judgment. Maybe when we die, we go to heaven and God's like, all right, so because you did this and this and this, you only get 3 years in heaven, and then you got to reincarnate with this asshole again. Maybe that's judgment day, right? We get like a little bit of a vacation in heaven, and we got to go back down here again with the same people and try to learn the same things. And maybe it's like a whole group exercise where the whole group can't move on until everybody learns all the lessons. So there's like 10 people, and like 9 people have learned the lessons, and 1 is just slow and won't figure it out. And they become the black sheep of the family. Like everybody's just like, will you figure this out? Will you figure this out? Will you figure this out? And they won't do it. Maybe that's how it works. Anyway, I think that's enough rambling for tonight. I don't even know what I'm going to title this, but farewell and adieu, you fair Spanish lady.